And the first part of the agenda is really a recap of yesterday, as well as beginning to look at some larger vision kinds of things. So the first part of the agenda is let's look at, can we recap what we did yesterday? But the second part has a lot to do with looking at some of the ways that we begin to think about how do we vision things. And I'll make a comment about that in a second, but for the most part, we had a real good flow yesterday. Please.
Because we are having this meeting virtually, I need to do kind of a formal opening and acknowledge who's with us, and the clerk has to record the times that when we started, and so we need to go through a roll call, basically. All right, Stephanie, work with me here.
Perfect, yeah.
All right, so let's do this. I want to welcome the public to the second day of the Charlotte City Council strategy session, where we talk about our long-term planning, get ideas about what's going on in the community and how do we impact the community and make Charlotte continuously a great place to live. We're already a great place, but we want to make sure that we continue that. So with that, it's today is what is today? Tuesday, September 3rd. What? Thursday is Tuesday, December 12th. And so I want to say to everyone, we're now going to have the introductions of our city council. We'll start with those that are in person in the government center. And so we will go ahead and do that. And then we'll go to the people attending the meeting virtually, starting with the mayor pro tem and proceeding around the room as appropriate. As well as, can we also include the staff at this one time in the roll call so that we can proceed with the day? Mayor Pro Tem.
Good morning, Julie Eisel, Mayor Pro Tem and serving at large.
Good morning, Matt Newton, District 5.
Good morning, Tarp Carr, District 6.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Larkin Eggleston, District 1.
All right, we'll go to the virtual city council members attending virtually, starting with our at-large members. Ms. Ajmira.
Good morning, Dimple Ajmira at large.
Jackson Winston at large.
Renee Johnson, District 4.
Victoria Wallace, District 3.
District 3. And now we'll go ahead and have the staff beginning with our Deputy City Clerk.
Stephanie Bell, Deputy City Clerk.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Patrick Baker, City Attorney.
Donata Jackson, Office of Constituent Services.
Kay Cunningham, Mayor's Office.
Just as a reminder, if you are attending virtually and you step away, please let us know if you're going to be gone for any period of time. And then when you come back, let us know that you're back. And we'll continue to do that to follow the rules of virtual meetings under the governor's emergency order. And I believe that Mr. Driggs is said that he is on his way. And so now I'm going to turn it over to the facilitator. Dan is going to help us work through this morning's session. And with no further comment, a further comment that I wanted to make, we have a full day, but just like anything else, we hope that we'll be able to address some things that require immediate attention and do that as well as anything that we have on our agenda. So let's do what we did yesterday. Keep it moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're starting on January 12th, 2021. And we have, as Madam Mayor said, we have a full day of discussion. But again, we want to be reminded that we're actually writing a magazine article here, which means just today we spent time looking back and looking at some of the key items from the previous year. So we spent time writing that particular article. Today we want to move a little bit further into the future, and we want to write an article about where do we go, and where are we going, essentially, is what the agenda talks about today. But to begin that, let's recap day one, if you will. And what I want to do, too, is just kind of, in a quick way, if there's any additional lingering issues that people thought about that they want to bring to the agenda today, this might be a good time to do that. But let me just recap where I saw things yesterday, and I think it was a real good dialogue, discussion about a lot of different things. We went through a transportation planning and environment and looked at some of the suggestions and review items from that committee. We looked at what we call greater neighborhoods. I had a chance to look at the Legacy Commission and did a real good discussion of that, and a lot of things were put on the future agenda for those items. We looked at budget and effectiveness and had a chance to discuss some future governance issues, workforce and business development. We looked at and spent quite a bit of time talking about arts and culture. And I want to say just quickly on that was a real good model for how we begin to look forward. That's a good model for us beginning to look into the future. And you guys had a real good chance to discuss the arts and culture, but you discussed it not from the standpoints of the weeds, but you talked about it from the standpoint of a vision, strategic. So I'd like to think that what we can do is continue that kind of dialogue today. Let me just do one quick editorial on that, and then I want to open it up to anybody else that has an issue or anybody else want to recap yesterday. It's been my experience that there's a lot of urgent tasks, urgent things that we have to get through, and we have to create space to do that. But then sometimes we have to create space to do the visionary, to do the vision, to do the big thinking about stuff. So the urgent stuff needs to be done, but sometimes we need to step away and write the magazine article about the future. So I would think today as a goal that would be the real goal of today, is to write that magazine article about the future, where we might be going. And again, it's not to preclude that we don't deal with any urgent issues that might come up. They will come up. But I'd like to challenge you today to spend the majority of time looking at the way that the future aligns with some of your overall arcing priorities. Let me just say, too, that we were real careful about taking notes yesterday, and I mentioned this thing called the parking lot. So a lot of things went in the parking lot, and we heard you on a lot of these issues that you wanted to talk about yesterday. And so the staff will take a time to look at what was said yesterday, record those things, and play them back in the proper sequence to where they ought to, what our suggestions might be in terms of where they ought to be going. So that's pretty much what I consider kind of a recap of yesterday. A lot was done, a lot was said. We spent some time in the weeds, and then sometimes we spent in looking at the future. And again, what I'd like to think about is today we look at this whole notion of vision. The other thing I want to say is I'd like to see, and this is again another challenge for you, if we have just a little bit more attention to time today than we did yesterday. Yesterday was fluid, and we did what we had to do yesterday. But today I'd like to think about it just in terms of me just putting a little bit more brakes on and reminding you that we're entering certain time frames so that we can keep fairly close to the agenda today. Again, that doesn't mean that we can't interject additional things, but what we want to do is to see how we can really guard our time today. Does that make sense, y'all? So, before I move forward, are there anything that you want to share some feedback or want to adjust anything from that happened yesterday that we want to begin to talk about yet today? Any feedback on day one?
So is there any feedback from the members that are on virtual? or in the room? Okay, I think that right now, I don't think you have any feedback.
Sounds good to me.
I mean, when excellence isn't in the room, I mean, really, why else?
Why, yeah, why should you?
Oh, no, I think that, so for me, yesterday was very helpful. And I know that several of my colleagues think this trust issue is like the trust fall. But for me, what I saw yesterday was an ability to be open, to trust that people had the interest that we're trying to take for the city's future at the core of decision-making. So I don't think that we all have to agree on everything, and I know we will not, but I see a lot more openness and willingness to have discussions that are hard, and I like that. I think that we only get better when we challenge each other to be better. So that's my thought for the day, for yesterday.
Good. Anybody else have any thoughts about yesterday? Okay, that's a good thing. The second item on the agenda today is set for 2 goals. Let me just take a part of the information here, if I may. We have on the agenda number 1, Fred and at the Hornets. Is that on the agenda? Did you? I see that. I just want to make sure I'm not overlooking something here.
Repeat that item?
It says it's some kind of vignette number 1 for Fred and the Hornets.
So I believe we're going to show the next CLT item that we were unable to show yesterday.
Oh, I see. Okay. So is that taking place now?
Not to replace, that would be after the next CLT.
After the next agenda item. Okay, thank you for too much. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. And again, just let me have some thumbs up on folks that are virtual. You guys coming in loud and clear? Just a thumbs up on me? Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, so the second item we'll be looking at is agreeing on priorities and assigning responsibility. We've got 2 goals for that. And one goal is to align on overarching priorities, developing plans, again, for the coming year. And the second goal is to determine what we consider North Star for BOLD initiative. And we have a guest speaker today that's kind of going to lead us through that. And that guest speaker pretty much is Tori Stevens. And is Tori, is Tori available? Hey, Tori. How you doing? Okay.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much. I have to tell you a funny I'll start off with this morning. Since we've been in this COVID environment, about once a quarter that I get fully dressed from head to toe now. Typically just from the waist up because I'm virtually all the time as I'm coaching and speaking. However, I put lipstick on this morning and I was like, why did you do that, Tori? You're going to have a mask on, like, right? But it's just the conditioning that we all have. So I'm thankful to be here this morning with you. My name is Tori Stevens, and for the next 30 minutes, we are going to have a dialogue together. And the reason why that we're going to do that is because we get to take the space and opportunity to understand more about ourselves so that we can continue to work with one another. Where is, how do I make, what button do I hit? Up here. I'm so sorry. Oh, it's not on. That will help. There we go. Thank you. Turned it on. All right. So here's the thing. For me, self-disclosure is very important. You're probably like, who is this person standing up here in front of us today? And I want to take a minute to tell you who I am. I am an entrepreneur. 2.5 years ago, I decided to leave my corporate job and to pursue my passion and my dream. The reason why I did this is because for the past 14 years, I've had the pleasure of I'm from Michigan and moved down here about 8 years ago, but I have a higher education background and I've also worked in corporate America. When I was in those areas, I constantly worked in a talent development space. So in 2008, I was at Davenport University and I worked with non-traditional students. So if any of us went back to school, that's who my audience was. When I was there, obviously the recession was happening, the auto crisis and the financial crisis. And the reason why that this is so important to bring up is because people were debating on who they were and how they were going to show up in this world. For many decades prior, most individuals knew what their career was going to be. But now in 2008, they were being questioned as to what job that they were doing and why they were doing that job. I moved back to Central Michigan University and obtained my master's in educational leadership, and at the same time built a 100-person volunteer program in career services. Because what I see happen all the time is that people doubt their natural skills and abilities because they think that their experience has to come from one way. So for example, athletes, Greek life, residence life, they think that they don't have experience because they're not paid for it. And so I wanted to be able to give them a pep talk. I wanted to be able to give them the transferable skills and the communication to understand who they were and how to be able to articulate that to others. I chose, as a single female, not knowing anybody in Charlotte, to come here on my own. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to do that as I obtained a job at UNC Charlotte. I quickly moved over to MetLife Insurance when they came to Valentine, and I hired 350 people in 4 months for them. And there are 2 questions that I only ask in an interview process. One is, how do you lead from a follower position? And 2 is, how do you work with individuals that have different personalities or perspectives than you? Those qualities will showcase to me that somebody knows who they are, but then they can be adaptable and nimble in situations. I then moved to Bank of America, where I led the internship and leadership development program for human resources, procurement, and consumer. And then I moved into CFO and built a 100-person internal consulting team. I tell you all this information because I kept seeing there is a gap. There is a gap between where people are and where people think people need to be. And the disconnect is, do we understand who we are and can we communicate that out loud to another and recognize that change does not occur overnight? But if we choose not to put one foot in front of the other and have that dialogue and conversation, we're not going to be able to move forward. I now teach as an adjunct at Queen's University, their Career Connections course. I speak around the country. I help individuals with their career to better understand themselves so that they can show up and make an impact in this world. And I do a consulting gigs as well. I tell you all this information because my motto is think, to talk, to walk. We do a really great game in this life of constantly talking. And typically we're talking about something that we need to change our perspective on. We talk about what we know from the past and we talk about what we want in the future. But what we forget to talk about is how we're functioning right now. And that's what we're talking about today when it comes to big ideas and North Stars. We have the opportunity today on your day 2 to think and to communicate your thoughts out loud, recognizing that the ideas that you have and the way that you're feeling about something is valid. But can we get it across so that everybody can understand what you're representing? Being present in the moment is not natural. A couple of thoughts for you. Did you know that you think of the same thoughts 90% of each and every day? And 80% of those thoughts typically are negative. They also come from past experiences or what you anticipate to happen in the future. So what happens is that we don't take the time to think about how are you feeling and thinking right now, and how are you being able to connect the dots. We have to learn how to navigate the gray, which is the present moment, which is what you get to do today. Oops. But here's the deal. this isn't about me. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself. This is about you. And so what I'm going to ask in a minute here, and the majority of our time is going to be spent with you, is that I'm giving you a warning. And the warning is this. I'm going to ask you to talk in the minute. Mr. Graham, you and I connected this morning, and I'm hoping that you can help me in a minute. You don't need to know any information because it's only all about yourself. Mr. Eggleston, I'm asking you that you would go after Mr. Graham, and then I would like you to pick somebody to then communicate next, okay? So I'm just letting you know that it's coming. So here's the thing, is that as a human-centric professional, we have the ability to help individuals all day long. And we focus constantly on what we're doing. Typically, we're focused on what's the next tangible result that we can get to. But here's the thing. You make magic happen in this room today that will show up in years and decades to come. That is why we need to be able to pull ourselves and be able to see above the trees and recognize that we have more in common with one another than we are different. And that's what we're going to do here today. So here's what I also know to be true as I coach and teach and speak around the country. People only know what you tell them. So if we don't break down and be able to dialogue amongst one another, to hear the big ideas that we have in our head, to be able to articulate it, not just for ourselves or the immediate people around us, but to the community and see the bigger picture, we're going to have a disconnect, because the disconnect is they'll only see the end result. They won't be able to understand the how and the why. Which is why we have to talk about this. What is your ripple effect? This is the meat of being able to understand where we're going when we think about what our North Star is that we want to achieve as a team. My why is recognizing that people choose to try to be somebody else from the get-go. When somebody applies to the application, they're trying to figure out what the company wants them to say. When they're in the interview, people typically don't even want to go through an interview process because they're already anticipating what they think that somebody wants to hear from them. We need to recognize that there's an opportunity to dialogue and to be able to understand how and what we're feeling today is important, because that is a bigger piece to our puzzle of who we are as a person. So Mr. Graham, I have a question for you, and the rest of you, I hope that you choose to engage with us. Pick one of these. Let's talk about this. The only thing that you need to know is who you are as a person. Mr. Eggleston will go after, and then I would like you to popcorn or punt it to somebody else. Let's just dialogue. I know that this seems warm and fluffy, but this is the important stuff. This is the why. This is the reason why you've been here for the past 2 days and you continue to be on this journey, a part of council. This is the reason why I'm here today, is because I recognize my legacy is going to show up in years and decades to come. This is what we get to do as a part of Charlotte. So Mr. Graham, which one would you like to talk about and give us some dialogue?
Let's go with number 3.
All right. How would a community member describe you?
I think a community member would describe me as being personable, sharp, and candid.
Okay. Why is that important to you?
Well, one, I think it's important that you got to like people, right? We're the people business. And so you have to have a personal relationship with individuals in the community so they can know that you're generally interested in helping them. Sharp, I think I do my homework. I try to be as prepared as possible. And candid, I try to tell people what they need to know versus what they want to hear.
How did you gain those confidence in you? That came from somewhere, right? Was it repetition? Was it experience? Like, why are those core qualities that are important to you to exhibit in your life?
Well, I think it comes through experience, right? Trial and error, doing things the wrong way. But more importantly, I think it's just the fabric in my DNA, right? I'm a people person. We talked about that. We struggled in terms of how we were going to greet each other, whether it was an elbow bump or a fist pump, and we both said that we were basically huggers, that we can't do it. And so just being able to authentically communicate and be responsive to people.
Thank you. Thank you for going first. I appreciate it.
No worries.
I kind of told you were going first. All right, Mr. Eggleston, who are you going to pick after this?
Probably Mr. Bakari, because I know he's chomping at the bit to participate. So any of these?
Any of those.
Number two, I guess, why do you choose to serve the community? I think for me at the time that I decided I wanted to serve our community, I realized how fast we were growing and how much our city was changing, and felt like the decisions that were made over the course of, this decade or two were going to have huge implications for the future of our city and all of its citizens. And I felt like, and still feel like, more good people need to engage in this work and be a part of this process, so that hopefully the decisions we make are the best ones possible, and steer this city, point us in a direction of prosperity for more of our community. So that was my why.
All right, fair. Are you from Charlotte?
I am from North Carolina, but not from Charlotte. I grew up in Winston-Salem.
Okay, so what was the opportunity that you saw for yourself to step into a council member role?
I felt like there were people in the part of the community that I represent that were looking for a new voice, and I felt like I had the experience and the networks in the city to be a viable option for that.
Yeah. Experience keeps being the word that shows up, right? Thank you. All right, good sir. You're next. Who are you going to pick after this?
Thank you, Larkin.
Who are you picking after you?
Can we pick the city manager or no?
You can pick anybody
Yeah, I pick the
who's
city
in the
manager
room.
next.
Yeah, and virtual too.
Actually, I changed that. I picked the mayor.
Okay.
All right, wait a minute. What else did I throw at it?
Oh, she threw stuff.
She did. That's number 2.
My gut makes me want to go with 3,
Okay.
because I would answer it as both smart and handsome and humble is probably how they describe me. But I'm going to go with 1, actually, my definition of success, because I think I have a very clear kind of mindset on success, where it's not the amount of effort or how much we talked about something or how many headlines something got. It's truly measured in outcomes. Like what ultimately is the thing that we're pointing at to achieve, right? And did we do so in a measurable manner? So that's how I kind of define success. It's not how hard you worked or the journey of which you took to get there. It's what you were setting out to accomplish in the first place, and did you actually do it?
Okay. How do you communicate to others that journey along the way? So I hear you that you're saying the outcome is really important, but in between, right, that gray space in between, how are you bringing people along? Like what in you do you use in order to get a group of people to be able to see your perspective, since obviously your journey or your end outcome will take a while sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. I think the tools I've used in the past are surround yourself with a team with people with complementary skill sets, but that are all lined up to the same outcome, and let them loose on the things that they do well. So everyone's contributing. And I mean, it goes back to the theme has been high performing teams for several weeks now. And I'm a huge believer in that. It is the team that ultimately achieves it, not any of the individuals, but you have to be a high performing team in order to achieve that kind of stuff.
Sure. Fair. Thank you. All right, Mayor. Nice to meet you, by the way. Thank you for having me here.
You work at my college. It was a college in Queens.
Queens?
I will take, what is the legacy you want to leave in this world? And
Yes,
I want to say this, I grew up in the South.
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
can you lean into your mic? We can't hear you.
Hey, I love that one, Victoria. That's really cool. Okay.
So does that mean
I'm leaning in.
leaning in? Madam Mayor, does that also mean that, Victoria, are you willing to go next?
That's a great
No,
one.
I'm not.
No,
Yes, come on.
She is willing to go next because I think I get to make the ABC choice, right?
You
So-
do.
So Lee, get ready. But actually,
Okay.
Victoria, it would help if I just turned the damn mic on. Okay. So what is the legacy that I want to leave in the world? And I was saying that I grew up not 100 miles from here. And I came to Charlotte when it was a small city. And watching it grow, my legacy in this world isn't really about what I do as mayor. It is about the people that I surround myself with to make sure that those people, mostly my family, my friends, this community, feel like they have the opportunity to make this place better. I always want to be a platform. I want to be able to take risks. But every step of my life has been about how do we make it better for the next generation going forward. And I hope that we get to do that. And that's what I want my legacy to be.
Madam Mayor, may I ask, if I asked your friends and family, how would they describe you to me?
Well, I don't usually ask them that question because perhaps because it's always tough to have people describe who you are
Yes.
as opposed to who you think you are. But I would hope that people would describe me as being kind. And I would hope that they would describe me as being inclusive. I would hope that they would define me as someone that thinks we can do anything if we work together to get it done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Into that mic is now Victoria Watlington.
Can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Okay.
Mrs. Watlington, who are you going to pick after you?
I'm going to pick, who has it gone? And it's up for anybody in the room?
Anybody.
Okay, well, I do pick the city manager. What now? I can't hear you. Okay. I would say I pick number. I didn't prepare. Forgive me. I picked number 4.
Okay.
And I'll say the legacy. It's more doers. I just want to enable people to self-actualize because you can get more done with everybody playing their role than one person can do themselves.
So I just want to make sure that I heard you for those in the room and for clarification for me. So it is for everybody? Is this what you're like, you want to, from an inclusive perspective, is your legacy? Sorry, it was just a little muddled.
No, I'm saying I want more people empowered to play their role.
Okay.
So I see my role as enabling folks to leverage their skills and abilities towards passions.
How do you leverage other skills? What do you do that allows other people to feel elevated or to be able for them to leverage their own skills? What do you do?
Well, I try to first recognize what their skills are. So I try to watch them. And then I invite them to do.
Love it. Thank you. Mr. Jones, who are you picking after you go?
Absolutely, positively, the Mayor Pro Tem. So I would choose number 2. Why do you choose to serve the community? And it's absolutely positively because of my parents. We didn't grow up with much, but I never felt as though I went without. And what was very important is what you gave back. So it gives us this great opportunity to affect change, give people hope, but also to make sure that there's an opportunity to prop other people up so they can be the best they can be.
Thank you. What common themes are you hearing in this as we switch from one person to the next? Are you hearing something? What are you hearing that people are saying about themselves when it comes to this group?
I hear it didn't start with the place that they are today, but started way before it was an ideal of what could be possible going forward. It wasn't that they got elected and were undecided about what they would present. Clearly, the conversation is about who we are to our core and what we can do with that core as a result of being elected officials here.
Yes, absolutely. You're talking about intangible skills. You're talking about your core, right, of how you choose to show up. As a single female, my random fact is I have a horse, so I'll just say that, is I have a house, a horse, a dog, and a car. It was this inner tap that constantly was happening inside of me. And the dirty truth is that I've had 10 jobs in 14 years before I decided to go work for myself. The reason why that I think I had so many jobs is because my inner core tap was not able to flourish in some of the environments that I selected myself in. I saw the good that I could do for the group, but was it reciprocal to me too? What is a mutual beneficial relationship that we were having with one another? That's what you get to do when you're here, is that the ideas that are in the heads of the individuals that choose to be a part of the Charlotte community, you get to put in a tangible result. But it has to start intangible. It's important to talk about what we are talking about right now. I get it, it doesn't give us an end result, but it allows us to slow down and be in the present moment to understand why we're choosing to show up today. That's what this is about. Think about what people have said about it's the experiences they bring to the table. It's what they can do for the individuals or the people around them. It's the ideas. It's recognizing that there is an opportunity to continue to create a path. That's what we're doing here today.
Okay. I will choose number 2 as well. And my next, the next person I would choose would be Braxton. And I would say that why I chose to serve the community is because I was also brought up that to whom much is given, much is expected. And that's just, you know, it could even be in terms of I grew up in a big family with tons of first cousins and a lot of love and always somebody around me that I knew I could go to. And so when I see young people who don't have that, that just naturally draws me to help young people who are at risk and who don't have those safety nets and those warm families to go to. I feel like I'm pretty self-aware as to who I am and what I have and what I came from, and I feel that what I have to offer the community is being a bridge, being able to take those experiences, and even though to some people being a moderate Democrat is not a good thing, to me it means that you can be a bridge builder to communicate with those maybe who we would like to have more dialogue with, that see things differently than ourselves, and have a conversation that helps us to all work together for the good of our community. So that's really important to me, to be aware of who I am, what my limitations are, but to use my strengths to try to bring the community together for the good of the greater portion of the community.
Thank you. When did you start noticing that you were a bridge? Because there's a pattern, right? In order to be able to vocalize something that you feel a certain way, it means that that's not your first rodeo, that you've walked through that experience, that you're starting to collect data on yourself. So when did you start really realizing, like, I am a bridge? I get the opportunity to be here and to connect pieces together.
I think probably my earliest experience was, I mean, I grew up west of Milwaukee in a very white, sort of rural suburban area where we didn't have a lot of experience with diversity. And I studied languages in high school and college, and then went to live in Spain and all of a sudden felt like an outsider because even though I was at the table, I couldn't understand the conversations. I couldn't keep up. And that is why I loved studying languages so much. It was because it gave me this entree into a different world, into different cultures, but also it gave me the ability to have an understanding of how people might feel that might be sitting right there, but feel very much as an outsider and aren't being included. And then, it's just life experiences, going through a violent crime and being able to say, I know how that feels, but then to be able to say to others, but I don't know how it feels for you, and I'm willing to listen and willing to advocate for you because that must be very hard and a painful experience. So I think if we all put aside our labels of each other and spent more time trying to understand other people's experiences, as adults, we've all had enough experiences in our life that we should be able to connect that to something and say, okay, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And at least we're not going to change each other's minds, but have a better understanding of where people are coming from and the perspectives they have.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. What you're saying is empathy versus sympathy, right? The empathetic nature of being able to listen to what somebody is saying and stand in your own truth and recognize you don't have to take their perspective, like that would be perspective taking, but being able to hear what they're saying and then rippling out that effect even more to recognize we are more similar than we are different at the end of the day. And the more we link arms with one another, the bigger we can make an impact of. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Who's next?
I think it's Mr. Winston.
All right.
Braxton?
Hello. Trying to get these AirPods figured out. I don't know if they're working or not right now. I say, what is the legacy you want to leave in this world? That he fought, worked, and achieved a society that provides for the equal protections of rights under the law for all people.
Why is this so important to you?
Because I think that's the American dream. I think that's the promise. I think that's what we all deserve. And the only reason that we're haven't been able to achieve it is because people that have been in power in the past have not wanted it. And it's my duty and my legacy to my ancestors.
Thank you. Mr. Winston, who do you pick next to go?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the connection.
That's okay. No problem. Who would you like next to go?
Oh, Renee.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Which one would you like to pick and talk about, and then who would you like to have go after you?
I'm going to choose Miss Ajmira, and I will answer number 2.
All right.
So, why did I choose to serve the community? Well, there was a moment. I've lived here in Charlotte for 5 years, and it was 4 years at the time. And I was working with a young man who had suffered a brain injury, which is the population I work with. And he also had a felony record. And I was looking for housing for him. And there was no affordable housing without an extraordinary list that I could find. And I'm pretty sure. So, when the former, I'm sorry, I'm getting back from room 267. So when the former Councilman Phipps was retiring, the seat became available, and someone mentioned it to me, and I didn't let fear stop me from running. I didn't have any political experience, but I'm a nonprofit founder, so I had been serving the community for a long time. So that's why I chose this role. Initially, why I started serving was after the passing of my mom. And I know the experience that I went through, and I just wanted to help others in that journey and not have that pain.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question for you. You said that someone spoke to you about the opportunity to run for the seat. What do you think that they knew or saw about you that they decided to say something to you?
267 is talking out muted.
Oh, they are. I thought my.
Oh, were we muted? Can you hear me? That's okay. Thank you. I'm so sorry. So my question for you was, you mentioned that when you recognized that there was a seat available, that somebody approached you and said that you should run for it. What did they see or what did they know about you to be able to vocalize their thoughts to you? That takes courage on their side as well, right? Because you could dismiss their idea, but you didn't. So why do you think that they chose to say something to you that you should run?
I'm an advocate for others. I'm an advocate for vulnerable populations. So they knew my work and thought that I should run. I always fight for the underdog.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. And who did you pick to go next?
Ms. Ajmira.
All right. And after, we will then move on to the next slide. So go ahead.
Okay, so I will pick Mr. Newton after me, and I will go with number 2. Why do you choose to serve the community? As someone who is a product of upward mobility, grew up with very little, and as an immigrant who didn't speak English 15 years ago, I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've been given by community, and community had invested in my future. So after I lost my father in a sudden heart attack, I decided to find my purpose, and is to really tackle a mobility dream. So people, as Mr. Winston said, can live their American dream. And that was the American dream that my parents immigrated here with.
Thank you for sharing. We are going to wrap up in just a moment. Do you want, okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'll pick number. Jeez, everyone has said such wonderful thing. Number 2, and I would say that I choose to serve the community to make a difference in the community. I'm a bit of a I think I'm probably the exception to the rule, a bit of a unicorn. I grew up here in Charlotte, and so I remember, and I'm fourth generation, so I've heard the stories. You know, growing up too, about Charlotte expanding. My granddad grew up downtown, back before any buildings existed. He actually, when he was growing up, he lived where the Duke Energy building is today. Yeah. It was like, I've seen pictures of what really amounts to, unpaved streets here downtown, and I've always had a real appreciation for our city, its growth, and at the same time, I think I was instilled with the, the sense of to serve and to give, not necessarily to give back, so much as to do what I can to help those in need. And I think as we've grown as a city, we've certainly, and I've known this my entire life, we do have a divide between haves and have-nots. So I want to be a difference maker, even if it's just my voice, as within the conversation, to elevate the voices of those who are in the who have the most need, and really facilitate, be a conduit for those folks as well. I'm an attorney by trade, so my training and background is one where I have to I have to figure out the pieces, the system, and help people navigate that. I guess more specifically, the intimidating nature of court, and I really take a lot of pride in that, and to be able to do that on a grander scale to help the residents of my district, but I think more broadly, the citizens of Charlotte navigate, the intimidating, somewhat confusing aspects of, in this context, the city, and in all it has to offer, to help, is, somewhere else where I see myself making a difference as well.
Thank you.
And I'd pick Ed.
Hi, do we have time for somebody else?
We want to hear from you.
All right, I thought I'd talk about success. I have a lot of the same feelings that others do about serving the community, which was what I considered talking about. But for me, success was basically entering any situation and making it better. So when I was working, success was the performance of my group and the career progress of the people in my group. But it's also little things. It's if you can make somebody's day better, or if you can just be helpful to them and they appreciate it. I spent a year tutoring at Waddell High School, and 8 students who were going to fail math and might not have graduated all passed math and did graduate. And I regard that as one of my biggest successes, frankly. So I think in general, just leaving any situation you enter better than it was when you arrived is a measure of success. Thank you.
Mr. Driggs, what did those 8 students see in you that they decided to continue to put one foot and forward in front of the other and accomplish and graduate? What did they see in you?
Well, I was part of an organization called Communities in Schools that arranged tutoring. So they were all struggling in math. And so we met because that organization put me together with them. But I started with one student, and a week later that student showed up with another student. And I think they appreciated that I was able to explain the math to them in a way that they had not understood before. It sort of gave them a window onto something they thought was incomprehensible. And that's, as I say, the satisfaction for me. I mean, I studied mathematical economics, and to kind of just make it accessible to them, and for them to watch them go, oh, wow, really? That's it. It was just a hugely rewarding experience.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Just gonna hit that button. I don't know if I can. It might not be on. That's all right. Okay, so I hope this was a moment for you to be able to hear yourself out loud of what you say in your head all the time, to vocalize where you come from, and for your peers to continue to learn who you are. That's what big ideas are about, is finding the core or the root to yourself, and continue to recognize that you are your own North Star. We are way more similar than we are different. And I've heard words like experience, people, idea, bridge, advocate, elevate, intangible skills, and accessibility. Thank you for the opportunity to meet each one of you today, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to communicate your thoughts. I wish you best on the rest of day 2, and I look forward in seeing you in the Charlotte community and being a partner to you as we continue to grow and elevate.
We have 1 more minute. I wonder if you would just reinforce this notion of the why.
The why, yeah. So I've had the pleasure of being able to interview about 14,000 individuals in my career, hire 6,000 people, and manage about 2,500. When I am inserting my why by being able to understand another person, I have to recognize that we will continue to build and grow together for years to come, and the seeds that I'm planting within them and in their life might not show up when we have a partnership. It might show up for years to come. But if I take that moment, if I build that bridge, if I become that advocate, if I listen to what they're saying, if I have more empathy than sympathy, then we will be able to continue to link arms together. So for example, as an entrepreneur, I cannot have a judgment or an expectation on how a situation is going to come up. I'm currently running a program, and 1.5 years ago, I met somebody in a presentation, and now she's showing up to be in the engagement that I'm doing. I have to recognize that I have an opportunity to plant a seed of significance when I show up like I am this morning with you, recognizing that we will continue to build the city together if we continue to understand who we are, which is our why. Recognizing that that is intangible, but it will show up tangible later on.
I read ahead in the deck about head trash and big ideas.
Yes.
And I think that those are good questions for us. I don't know if you have time to just.
I do. I want to respect your time. I'm happy to show that if you would like.
Do you mind if we could just have a little bit of leeway so that we can go through? I think these are good questions for us to think about.
Absolutely. May we show the slide on the video that has? Okay. Thank you. So as the slide is coming up, and you'll see in your deck, there's this word called head trash that's very interesting. Head trash is the notion that we have fears, limiting beliefs that dictate our mindset. And it comes from what either has happened or what we think could happen. That's why when past and future are butted up next to one another, and we don't take the opportunity to create the space in between, we just keep repeating the habit again and again. There we go, perfect. So here's the thing, a conspiracy theory, if anybody's familiar with Brené Brown, she says it really well in her Rising Strong podcast with Oprah. A conspiracy theory is having limited or factual, non-factual information, but you are believing something to be true. We do this all the time because we place an expectation on one another that we already know what somebody is already thinking or what they're going to say, and so we limit the opportunity to dialogue with one another. The other thing is that we do not dialogue well with one another because we punt our perspective or our emotion back and forth on one another. A simple and easy tool that you could do today is leading your thought with a question first to make sure you have enough information. This is how you verify your head trash thoughts. If you start a question with who, what, where, when, why, or how, you will gain more factual knowledge back. Because you need to make sure, is your perception really reality, or do you need to ask a couple more questions to figure out what reality is that person is?
Mr. Baker?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We need to have a closed session with you on two grounds. One, for attorney-client communication under 143-318-11A3, and to discuss matters related to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses pursuant to 143-318-11A4.
Move to go into closed session.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Driggs and a second by Mr. Newton. And Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Okay.
Council members that are virtual, there is a second link that was just emailed to your inbox. Go to the link marked 1030.